The stone was cold against my palm, colder than death, colder than the 3 rejections that had hollowed out my chest and left me empty. I didn't pray. Prayers were for wolves the moon goddess actually gave a damn about. The world exploded, sound first, like 1,000 mirrors shattering at once, the noise so pure and terrible it seemed to split the sky itself. Then light, silver and blinding, erupting from beneath my hand, where it pressed against the moon altar. The ancient stone blazed hot, and I tried to jerk away, but the light had wrapped around my wrist like chains, like destiny, like everything I'd never wanted. Then came the screaming. It started distant from the valley below where the harvest moon ceremony still raged. One voice, 10, 100. The sound rose like a wave of agony, rolling across the Silverpaw Kingdom until the very air vibrated with pain. My wolf stirred inside me for the first time in months, whimpering, confused. What did we do? I didn't know. I didn't know. The light released me, and I stumbled backward, my boots skidding on the frost-slicked stone of Moonpeak Cliff. The altar had gone dark again, just weathered granite and ancient carved runes, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. Something enormous and irreversible. My hands were shaking. No, my whole body was shaking. I looked down at myself, half expecting to see some visible change, some mark of whatever I'd just unleashed, but I looked exactly the same. Kira Ashenvale, defective Omega, 23 years old and bond-marked by no one. Unwanted, broken, cursed, that's what they called me. 3 alphas had tried to claim me, and 3 times the mating bond had failed to form. No mark bloomed on my neck, no silver thread connected my soul to theirs. Each time, I'd felt nothing but their anger, their revulsion, their shame at being stuck with damaged goods. Dane Thornwood had been the worst. Just 6 hours ago, he'd stood in front of the entire pack, in front of everyone who mattered, and announced that I was broken and unworthy of the goddess's blessing. He'd said it with his perfect blonde mate draped over his arm, the one he'd found just 2 weeks after rejecting me. Her bond mark had been visible from across the ceremonial grounds, a beautiful silver wolf print on her throat. Everything I'd never have. So I'd climbed. Past the warning stones, past the sacred boundary markers, all the way up to the forbidden moon altar, where only the high priestess was permitted to walk. If the goddess wanted to strike me down for my blasphemy, fine. At least it would be over. I'd touched the altar meaning to curse her, to rage at her, to demand why she'd made me this way, why she'd given me life but denied me the one thing that made that life worth living in a world of wolves. I hadn't expected an answer. The screaming continued, and now I could hear words in it. Names being called. Mates trying to reach each other across impossible distances. The sound of an entire kingdom in agony. No, I whispered. No, no, no. I ran to the cliff's edge, and what I saw below froze the blood in my veins. The harvest moon ceremony had descended into chaos. Wolves were collapsed on the ground, writhing. Alphas, I could tell by their size, their bearing even in pain, were clutching their chests, clawing at their necks. The bond marks. I could see it even from this distance, the way their mates crowded around them, the way the silver marks that had glowed so beautifully in the moonlight were now burning, burning away. Oh, goddess, what have I done? The one who bears no mark shall unmake all marks. The memory hit me like a physical blow. Old Priestess Mara, half mad and dying, had grabbed my wrist at last year's spring rites. She'd looked at me with milky eyes and spoken in a voice that didn't sound like her own. Everyone had dismissed it as fever dreams, the ramblings of a mind slipping away. But I remembered. I'd never forgotten. A howl split the night. Not pain this time, but rage. Pure, focused rage, coming from the direction of the Alpha King's stronghold to the east. Dominic Bloodmoon, the most powerful Alpha in 5 generations, letting the kingdom know that someone would pay for this. I had to run. The thought galvanized me, sent me scrambling back from the cliff's edge. My wolf was awake now, fully alert, screaming at me to move. She might be as defective as I was, but her survival instincts were sharp. I made it 3 steps before I heard the beating of wings. The raven landed on the altar, impossibly large, its eyes glowing with the same silver light that had burst from the stone. When it spoke, I heard it not with my ears, but directly in my mind, resonating in the hollow space where my bond should have been. What is broken can unmake. What is unmade can be reborn. Run, daughter of nothing. They will hunt you until the last breath leaves your body or the last alpha bows at your feet. I don't understand, but the raven was already gone, dissolving into moonlight and shadow. Footsteps on the sacred path, heavy, running, accompanied by snarls and shouts. They were coming for me already. Someone must have seen the light, tracked it to its source. I ran. The northern path down Moon Peak was treacherous even in daylight, barely more than a goat track clinging to the cliff face. In the dark, with frost making every stone slick as ice, it was nearly suicidal. I slipped twice, caught myself both times with fingers that left blood on the rocks. My wolf wanted me to shift, to let her run on 4 legs instead of 2. But I didn't dare. In wolf form, I'd be easier to track, easier to identify, easier to kill. Behind me, the sounds of pursuit grew closer. I could hear them shifting, the crack and pop of bones rearranging, the snarl of wolves who'd caught a scent. My scent. The path widened, and I poured on speed, my lungs burning in the thin mountain air. The whispering forest lay ahead, dark and deep. If I could make it to the tree line, I might be able to lose them in the... A massive gray wolf landed in front of me, blocking the path. I skidded to a halt so fast I nearly pitched forward off the cliff. The wolf was huge, easily 400 pounds, with eyes that glowed gold in the darkness. Alpha, definitely alpha. He shifted, bones cracking, and a man rose where the wolf had been. Marcus Ironjaw, beta to Alpha King Dominic, and the most ruthless tracker in the kingdom. Kira Ashenvale. His voice was rough, and I could see the pain still etched in his face, the raw place on his neck where his bond mark had been. You're under arrest by order of the Alpha King for crimes against the realm and the sacred bonds of our people. I didn't mean... I started, but he was already shifting again. 3 more wolves melted out of the shadows behind him. Royal Guard, all of them, all massive, all focused on me with the single-minded intensity of predators who'd found their prey. I was trapped between them and the cliff. For a wild moment, I almost laughed. I'd come up here to throw myself off anyway, hadn't I? Maybe this was just the goddess's twisted sense of humor, forcing me to the same end by a different path. But then I thought of Dane's face when he'd rejected me. The satisfaction in his eyes, the pleasure he'd taken in my humiliation. I thought of every Alpha who'd looked at me with disgust, every Omega who'd whispered cursed when I passed, every door that had been closed in my face because I was broken, defective, wrong. Something hot and fierce kindled in my chest where the bond should have been. No, I didn't want to die. I wanted to live. I wanted to understand what I'd done, what I'd become. I wanted answers, and I sure as hell wasn't going to let them take me without a fight. "Sorry," I said to Marcus Ironjaw, "but I don't think I will." Then I jumped backward off the cliff. The last thing I saw was the shock on his face as I fell into darkness, the wind screaming in my ears, the forest rushing up to meet me. The last thing I felt was my wolf surging forward, taking control for the first time in my entire life, and the sensation of power, strange, silver, impossible, flooding through my veins. The last thing I thought was that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as broken as everyone believed. Then I hit the trees, and the world went black. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. I woke to pain and the smell of earth. Everything hurt, ribs, head, left arm throbbing with a heat that meant broken or badly sprained. I was alive, though, which seemed impossible given that I'd just thrown myself off a cliff. My wolf had saved us somehow, taken control in those final seconds before impact, and guided us through the canopy in a way that should have been impossible for someone who'd shifted maybe a dozen times in her entire life. I forced my eyes open. Darkness pressed close, broken only by thin shafts of moonlight filtering through a dense canopy overhead. The whispering forest. I'd made it across the boundary, into the wild territory where pack law held no sway, where rogues and outcasts made their home. I tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. White-hot pain lanced through my ribs, stealing my breath. Broken, definitely broken. My left wrist wasn't much better, already swelling purple-black in the dim light. But I was alive, and I was, for the moment, free. A howl echoed through the forest, distant but clear. Then another, closer. The hunting party. They'd followed me over the boundary. Pack law be damned. Of course they had. I'd destroyed every mate bond in the kingdom. There was no law they wouldn't break to bring me in. I had to move. Gritting my teeth against the pain, I forced myself to stand. The world tilted sideways, and I grabbed a tree trunk for support, bark rough against my palm. That's when I saw it. A thread of light, silver and gossamer thin, hanging in the air like a spider's web. It drifted on a breeze I couldn't feel, one end trailing off into the darkness, the other simply ending, severed. The edge of it flickered and sparked like a dying flame. I reached out without thinking, and my fingers passed through it. Cold rushed up my arm, and for just a moment I felt her. Some Omega I'd never met, dozens of miles away, curled up in bed and crying because the other half of her soul had been torn away. I felt her confusion, her terror, her grief. I jerked my hand back, gasping. The thread faded from view, but I knew it was still there. And now that I'd seen one, I could see others. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe, threading through the forest like a vast invisible web that connected every wolf in the kingdom. Every thread was broken, sparking at the edges, slowly dying. What have I done? The question had been haunting me since I'd touched the altar. Now, seeing the evidence of it hanging in the air around me, the weight of it threatened to crush me completely. Another howl, so close I could hear the individual voice in it. Marcus Ironjaw, still tracking, still hunting. I ran. The forest was old here, the trees massive and gnarled, their roots forming treacherous obstacles in the darkness. I stumbled more than I ran, my broken ribs screaming with every breath, but fear drove me forward. Behind me, I could hear them crashing through the underbrush. They weren't being quiet anymore. They didn't need to be. I was injured, alone, and they could track me by scent as easily as following a lit path. The ground dropped away suddenly, and I went tumbling down a ravine, unable to stop myself. I landed hard at the bottom in a freezing creek, the shock of cold water driving the air from my lungs. For a moment I just lay there, half submerged, wondering if it would be easier to just let the cold take me. "Get up." The voice was male, rough, and came from directly above me. I looked up to find a man crouched on a boulder at the ravine's edge, silhouetted against the moon. Large, broad-shouldered, unmistakably alpha even in human form. For a wild second, I thought Marcus had found me. But then the man jumped down, landing light as a cat just a few feet away, and I saw his face. Scarred. Heavily scarred. 3 parallel marks running from his left temple down across his cheek and jaw. His eyes were amber, not gold, and when he looked at me there was no recognition in them. No hatred either, which seemed strange given that every other alpha in the kingdom wanted me dead. "They're 30 seconds behind you," he said, extending a hand. "Your choice. Come with me or stay here and let them take you." I stared at his hand, at the broken threads I could now see hanging around him. Only there weren't as many as there should be. Most alphas his age, 30, maybe 35, would be trailing dozens of pack bonds, family bonds, maybe a mate bond. He had perhaps 6 threads, all of them thin and weak. An outcast. A rogue. Behind me, splashing footsteps echoed down the ravine. No time to think, to weigh options, to consider whether trading one captor for another was any kind of victory. I took his hand. His grip was strong, calloused, and he hauled me up without apparent effort despite my dead weight. "Run," he said, then shifted. The wolf that took his place was huge and dark, nearly black, with the same amber eyes. Those scars carried over too, pale lines through his fur. He pressed his shoulder against my leg, clearly expecting me to climb on. I'd never ridden a wolf before. It wasn't done, not unless you were too young or too injured to shift yourself. But the snarls behind us were getting louder, and my ribs made shifting impossible even if I'd wanted to try. I grabbed a fistful of fur and pulled myself onto his back. The moment I was seated, he took off like a shot, moving through the dark forest with a confidence that spoke of years traversing this terrain. I clung to him, my broken wrist screaming protest, and tried not to fall off as he leapt over obstacles I couldn't even see. We ran for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Eventually, the sounds of pursuit faded. The rogue wolf, my unlikely rescuer, slowed to a trot, then stopped in a small clearing where firelight flickered between the trees. A camp. I could see rough shelters built against the trunks of massive oaks, and perhaps 24 wolves in various states of human and animal form watching our approach with wary eyes. More rogues. More outcasts. I jumped from one trap into another. The dark wolf shifted beneath me, the change forcing me to slide gracelessly to the ground. I caught myself on my good hand, looked up to find the scarred man standing over me, now wearing rough trousers someone had apparently left nearby. "Zayan Blackthorn," he said, like that should mean something. It did. Even isolated as I'd been, even as low-ranking as my pack status was, I'd heard the stories. Zane Blackthorn, exiled 7 years ago for refusing an arranged mating with Alpha King Dominic's cousin. He'd fought his way out of Silverstone territory, leaving 3 royal guards dead behind him, and vanished into the forbidden forest. They said he'd gone feral. They said he led a band of rogues who raided pack lands and stole supplies. They didn't say anything about him rescuing cursed Omegas, but here we were. Kira Ashenvale, I managed, which he probably already knew. By now, everyone in the kingdom would know my name. Yes. His amber eyes studied me with an intensity that made me want to shrink back. You're the one who broke the bonds. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. No point denying it. I didn't mean to. I didn't know. Doesn't matter what you meant. He crouched down to my level, which somehow made him more intimidating rather than less. What matters is what you did. Every alpha in 5 kingdoms felt their bond snap. You've got King Dominic himself leading the hunt, and he's not the forgiving type. They'll tear you apart when they catch you. Literally. Then why did you help me? Something that might have been amusement flickered across his scarred face. Because I don't have a bond to lose. Never did. I'm defective, same as you. And because... He gestured to the camp around us. To the watching rogues. Most of us here are unbonded, rejected, or exiled. The mate bond system destroyed our lives long before you shattered it for everyone else. I looked around the clearing with new eyes, and now I could see it. The threads hanging around these wolves were different. Some had none at all. Some had only broken ends trailing off into nothing. Marks of rejections and failed bonds. These were the unwanted, the defective, the cursed. My people, apparently. So what do you want from me? I asked. Because nobody helped anyone without wanting something in return. That much I'd learned. Zine smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. The others want to use you as a bargaining chip. Trade you to the king in exchange for pardons, for the right to return to Pack lands. He stood, offered me his hand again. But I see an opportunity for something better. Something that could change everything. I didn't take his hand this time. What? Freedom from the mate bond system entirely. You broke it once. Maybe you can break it permanently. Imagine a world where wolves choose their own mates based on love, not some goddess-given compulsion. Where Omegas like you aren't considered cursed for failing to bond. Where alphas like me aren't exiled for refusing a bond we never wanted. It was a pretty speech. It was also completely insane. I don't even know what I did, I protested. I can't control it. I can't. Then you'll learn. Zine's voice had gone hard. You don't have a choice, Omega. If you don't figure out how to control this power, the king will execute you, and if the king doesn't, someone else will. Your only chance is to understand what you are and what you can do. Before I could respond, a commotion erupted at the edge of camp. Wolves were shifting, snarling, and I heard a voice I recognized. Smooth, cultured, dripping with authority. I know she's here, Blackthorn. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Dane. Dane Thornwood was here, in the rogue camp, leading what looked like a dozen pack warriors. Even in the firelight, I could see how wrong he looked. Pale, sweating, clutching his chest where his bond mark had been. Without his connection to Seraphina, he was weakening. They all were. Zan moved to stand between me and the new arrivals, his body language screaming protection, even though he barely knew me. She's under my protection now, Thornwood. You're in rogue territory. Pack law doesn't apply here. Pack law? Dane's laugh was bitter. There is no pack law anymore. There are no bonds, no structure, no order. That thing, he pointed at me, destroyed everything. Seraphina is dying. The Luna Queen is dying. Children are weakening by the hour. We don't have time for your territorial posturing. Then leave, Zaun said simply. Dane's eyes locked on mine, and I saw something in them I'd never seen before. Not contempt, not disgust. Something worse. Need. Desperate, clawing need. Kira! His voice cracked on my name. I've been seeing you. In dreams, in visions. Ever since the breaking, it's like something's trying to tell me. He stopped, swallowed hard. The High Priestess says you have to return to the altar. You have to reverse what you did. If you don't, everyone dies. Everyone. You have one lunar cycle. 28 days. They were giving me 28 days to figure out how to undo what I'd accidentally done, or every bonded wolf in the kingdom would die. I can't reverse it. The words burst out of me, frustration and fear making my voice sharp. I don't know how I did it in the first place. I'm defective, remember? Broken? Unworthy of the goddess's blessing? Those were your words, Dane. Your exact words. He flinched like I'd struck him. I was wrong. You were right. I struggled to my feet, ignoring the pain in my ribs, my wrist, ignoring Zane's warning hand on my shoulder. I am broken. I've always been broken. 3 alphas tried to bond with me, and 3 times it failed because there's something wrong with me. I'm sorry your mates are suffering. I'm sorry children are dying. But I can't fix this. I don't know how. Then we're all dead. Dane's voice was flat, and for a moment he looked old, haggard. Without his bond, he was just a man, not an alpha, just a scared, dying man. The priestess had a vision. She says you're not defective, Kira. She says you're an Omega Prime. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's not possible. Omega Primes are extinct. The last one died 500 years ago. The last recorded one, Dane corrected. But the prophecy was clear. The one who bears no mark shall unmake all marks. You never bonded because you're not meant to bond. You're meant to create bonds and destroy them. You have power over the mate bond system itself. I stared at him, at Zane, at the gathered wolves all watching me with expressions ranging from hope to fear to rage. Broken threads hung in the air between us, sparking and dying, and I could feel them now. Really feel them. Like they were part of me somehow. Like they were strings I could pluck if only I knew how. The goddess didn't curse you. She marked you for something greater. The raven's words came back to me, and for the first time since I'd touched that altar, something other than fear moved through my chest. Power, understanding, purpose. Maybe I wasn't broken after all. Maybe I was exactly what I was supposed to be, and maybe that was more terrifying than any curse could ever be. I need time, I heard myself say. I need to understand what I am before I can fix what I broke. You don't have time, Dane started, but Zane cut him off. She has 28 days. She'll use them. He looked at me, something calculating in his amber eyes. I'll teach you what I know about bonds. In exchange, when you figure out how to control your power, you help my people. You break their failed bonds, free them from their rejections. Deal. It was blackmail, essentially. Help the rogues or he'd hand me over to Dane, to the king, to whoever wanted to string me up as a sacrifice to restore order. But it was also the only offer I had. Deal, I said. Dane looked between us, and I saw the moment he realized he'd lost this round. 28 days, Kira. That's all we have. If the bonds aren't restored by the next full moon, There won't be enough wolves left alive to have a kingdom. Then he was gone, his warriors melting back into the forest, leaving me alone with Zane and his rogues and a power I didn't understand. A power that could save everyone or destroy what was left of the world I knew. No pressure. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 3. The woman who came to me in the darkness before dawn was ancient, not in the way she moved, but in her eyes. They held centuries, though her face looked perhaps 60, weathered and scarred like old leather. She settled onto the log beside me where I sat by the dying fire, wrapped in a blanket someone had given me, my ribs bound and my wrist splinted. "You can't sleep," she said. Not a question. Every time I close my eyes, I see them. The threads, the broken bonds. I didn't know why I was telling her this. Maybe because exhaustion had stripped away my defenses, or because something in her eyes said she already knew. I can hear them dying, feel them. Good. At my sharp look, she smiled. It transformed her face, made her almost beautiful. If you couldn't feel them, you wouldn't be able to help them. I'm Mira. I used to be High Priestess, before they exiled me for telling truths no one wanted to hear. The High Priestess. I sat up straighter, ignoring the protest from my ribs. You know what I am, what I did. I know what you are, yes. What you did was inevitable. Long overdue, actually. She pulled a leather-bound journal from her robes, its pages yellowed with age. What do you know about the mate bond system, child? I shrugged, which hurt. The moon goddess created it. When wolves come of age, she chooses their perfect match and marks them with a bond. It's sacred, unbreakable. I paused. Or it was, until I touched the altar. Pretty story. Mira's voice was dry as dust. Also complete horseshit. I blinked. Former high priestesses weren't supposed to talk like that. She opened the journal, revealing pages covered in cramped handwriting and strange symbols. 500 years ago, there was no mate bond system. Wolves chose their own partners based on love, compatibility, choice. Some bonds formed naturally. True mate bonds, rare and powerful, blessed by the goddess. But they were uncommon. Most wolves simply married for love or alliance or convenience like any other creature. That's not what they teach you? No, it wouldn't be. She turned a page, showed me a drawing of a wolf standing over an altar, hands raised, power radiating from him in dark waves. Aldrich the Conqueror wanted an empire. But wolves are fractious, independent. They don't submit easily to authority. So Aldrich found a blood mage, a practitioner of the old dark arts, and together they created the mate bond spell. The words hung in the cold morning air like an accusation. It was brilliant, really, Mira continued, her voice taking on a lecturer's tone. Bind wolves in compulsory pairs. Make them feel incomplete without their other half. Tell them it's divine will. Suddenly you have a population that's easier to control. Alphas focused on protecting their mates instead of challenging authority. Omegas dependent on alphas for validation. Everyone locked into rigid hierarchies. The moon altar isn't a gift from the goddess. It's the anchor point for Aldrich's spell, powered by 5 centuries of belief and blood sacrifice. I wanted to call her crazy. I wanted to dismiss this as the ravings of an exile trying to justify her heresy. But I thought of the threads I could see, hanging broken in the air. I thought of how mechanical the mate bond system had always seemed. how it ignored love and forced incompatible wolves together. How it had failed with me 3 times, because something in me had resisted. The prophecy, I whispered. The one about me. Wasn't about disaster at all. Mira's smile was fierce now, triumphant. An Omega Prime is born every 500 years, the goddess's counter to the corruption of her gift. You're not meant to destroy the mate bonds, child. You're meant to break the false bonds and restore true mate magic. Bonds that form from love, not compulsion. Bonds that wolves choose, not bonds forced upon them. But everyone's dying without their bonds. Without the false bonds, yes. The spell is tied to their life force. Break the bond, and the magic takes payment in pain and eventual death. She gripped my shoulder, her fingers strong despite her age. But you can create new bonds. True bonds. I've seen it in the old texts. An Omega Prime can see the soul threads that connect compatible wolves and weave them into proper bonds. Voluntary, powerful, real. I thought of Zane, of his talk about freedom from the bond system. He'd been closer to the truth than he knew, but it wasn't about eliminating bonds entirely. It was about making them genuine. The Alpha King, I said slowly. He knows, doesn't he? About Aldrich and the spell. Mira's expression darkened. Aldrich IX is a direct descendant of the Conqueror. He knows. His family has guarded the secret for 500 years, and he'll burn the kingdom to ash before he lets you expose it. He's already sent his son. His son? Prince Theron Bloodmoon, unmated, and therefore at full strength, while every other alpha in the kingdom weakens. She closed the journal. He's the king's assassin, and he's hunting you. A commotion at the edge of camp interrupted whatever I was going to say. Wolves were shifting, snarling, and I recognized the scent on the wind before I saw them. Dane's hunting party. They'd found us again. Zane appeared beside me so fast I jumped, fully dressed and armed with a wicked-looking blade. Get behind me! I'm not helpless. You're injured, and you don't know how to fight. His amber eyes met mine. I didn't pull you out of that ravine just to watch you die in a pointless battle. Behind me, now. Dane emerged from the trees with perhaps 20 wolves at his back. He looked worse than yesterday. Skin gray, movements jerky, like every step cost him. Without his bond to Seraphina, he was deteriorating fast. Stand down, Blackthorn, he called. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to talk. You brought 20 warriors to talk? Zane's voice was skeptical. I brought them because my packmates don't trust rogues. Dane's eyes found mine. The High Priestess sent a message. The king is coming, Kira. He's bringing the royal army, and he's not interested in bringing you in alive. You have 3 days, maybe 4, before he arrives. Let him come, Zane said. We'll disappear deeper into the forest. And then what? Dane's laugh was bitter. The bonds continue to fail, wolves continue to die, and eventually, there's no kingdom left to save. The priestess says Kira is our only hope. She needs to return to the altar to understand her power, so she can restore the false bonds and lock us all back into slavery. Mira had stood, and there was power in her voice that made even Dane flinch. I know you, Dane Thornwood. Your bond with Seraphina always felt wrong to you, didn't it? Like wearing a collar that didn't quite fit? Dane's face went carefully blank. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Didn't you wonder why the bond formed so quickly? Why it felt so easy when it should have been the most profound connection of your life? Mira took a step forward. Seraphina used a dark enchantment on you, boy. She faked your bond. The words fell like stones into still water, and I watched the ripples spread across Dane's face. Shock, denial. Then, slowly, a terrible understanding. No, he said, but there was no conviction in it. She's an acolyte of the old blood magic. She works for the Alpha King, poisoning his rivals, maintaining the corruption of the bond system. Mira's voice was relentless. Your bond was never real. That's why you couldn't stop thinking about Kira even after you rejected her. That's why you dream of her now. She might be your true mate, and Seraphina stole that from you. Dane looked at me, and I saw my own confusion reflected in his eyes. Could it be true? Could we have been meant for each other, and the bond had failed because he was already trapped in a false one? Before anyone could speak, one of Dane's warriors shouted a warning. They came from all sides, royal guards in ceremonial armor, at least 50 of them, moving with military precision. We'd been so focused on Dane's party that we'd missed the real threat. And at the center of them, mounted on a massive black wolf, was Prince Theron Bloodmoon. Even in human form, he was terrifying. Tall, broad-shouldered, with his father's cold eyes and a sword strapped across his back that looked like it had tasted plenty of blood. He dismounted in one fluid motion, and every wolf in the clearing, rogue and pack wolf alike, took a step back. Kira Ashenvale, he said, his voice carrying easily. By order of Alpha King Aldrich IX, you are condemned to death for crimes against the realm. Resist, and everyone here dies with you. Zayn moved without hesitation, placing himself between me and the prince. You'll have to go through me. That can be arranged. Theron drew his sword, the blade gleaming silver in the dawn light. What happened next happened fast. Dane's warriors, caught between loyalty to their prince and whatever complicated feelings Dane had about me, hesitated. The royal guards didn't. They attacked the rogue camp with brutal efficiency, and suddenly the clearing was full of snarling wolves, clashing metal, and screams. Zayn shifted, his massive dark wolf form a wall of muscle and fury between me and the royal guards. He took down 3 of them in as many seconds, but there were too many. A sword caught him across the shoulder, and he yelped, a sound so pain-filled it made my chest ache. He went down hard, blood spreading across his dark fur. No. I was moving before I could think, dropping beside him, my hands pressing against the wound, even though I had no idea what I was doing. His amber eyes found mine, already starting to glaze with shock. I'm sorry, I thought at him, hoping somehow he could hear it. I'm so sorry. Heat flooded through my hands. Not the heat of blood, but something else. Something that came from deep inside me, from the place where my bond should have been. I looked down and saw light, golden and warm, flowing from my palms into Zayn's wound. The threads. I could see them again. But this time they weren't broken and silver. They were gold, whole, and they were connecting me to Zayn in a way I'd never been connected to anyone. It felt like choice, like recognition, like rightness. Will you accept this? Some instinct made me ask, made me wait for his consent even though he was dying. Zayn's wolf form shimmered, and the man emerged, one hand covering mine where it pressed against his wound. His eyes were clear now, focused, and filled with wonder. Yes, he said. The bond snapped into place. It was nothing like what I'd been told bonds felt like. There was no sense of ownership, no compulsion, no loss of self. Instead, it felt like a door opening, not to let someone take part of me, but to let me share what I chose to share. I could feel Zane's strength, his determination, his surprise. And he could feel me, I knew, feel my fear and my power and my desperate hope that this would work. The wound under my hands closed, not slowly, but in a rush of golden light and healing magic that left Zane gasping. He sat up, and the bond between us blazed like a sun, visible even to those who shouldn't be able to see such things. The fighting stopped. Everyone, royal guards, rogues, pack wolves, stared at us in shock. Impossible, Theron breathed. Then louder. She created a new bond. She actually... Retreat! It was Dane who shouted it, and for a moment I didn't understand why. Then I saw his face, saw the calculation there. Royal Guard, retreat now. The king must know about this. Theron looked torn between following orders and finishing his assassination, but in the end, discipline won. This isn't over, Ashenvale. Next time I won't hesitate. Then they were gone, melting back into the forest as quickly as they'd come, leaving the rogue camp in chaos and me kneeling beside Zane with a golden thread connecting us that shouldn't exist. Well, Mira said into the shocked silence. That changes everything. Zane was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. What did you do? I don't know. The truth, but not helpful. I couldn't let you die. And then I felt something, like I could see how you were supposed to fit together. And I just wove it. A true bond. Mira's voice was filled with awe. Voluntary, built on choice and sacrifice and genuine connection. This is what the goddess intended. This is what you're meant to restore. Dane approached slowly, carefully, like I might bolt. Kira, if you can do this, if you can create real bonds to replace the false ones, the king will kill her, Zone finished, standing and pulling me up with him. The bond between us thrummed with shared understanding. He'll kill everyone who knows the truth. You just gave him proof that everything the royal family has built for 500 years is a lie. Then we fight, Dane said. Something in his voice had changed, hardened. Seraphina used me. The king has been using all of us. If Mira's right, if the bonds were never real, then everything we've built our society on is a corruption. You'd go against your king? Zoin asked skeptically. I'd go against anyone who made me a slave without my knowledge. Dane looked at me. But we need proof. We need to expose what Aldrich's family has done. And we need you to survive long enough to restore real bonds before everyone dies. I wanted to run. I wanted to find a hole somewhere deep in the forest and hide until all of this went away. But I thought of the threads I could see. The broken bonds slowly killing thousands of innocent wolves who'd never asked to be caught in this web of ancient lies. And I thought of Zane, warm and alive beside me, connected to me by a bond that felt nothing like slavery and everything like freedom. Then we need to get to the capital, I said. To the original moon altar in the king's vault. If that's where Aldrich anchored the spell, that's where I can break it permanently. That's suicide, Zane said flatly. Probably. I met his eyes, felt the bond between us pulse with shared determination. But it's also the only way to save everyone. And maybe... I thought of Mira's words, of prophecies and liberation. Maybe it's what I was born to do. Mira smiled. The goddess chose well. 3 days until the king arrived with his army. 3 days to plan the impossible. Infiltrating the most secure location in the kingdom. Exposing a 500-year-old conspiracy. And restoring true mate bonds before the false ones killed everyone. No pressure at all. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. They came to us in ones and twos at first, then in groups, then in waves. The unbonded, the rejected, the widowed who'd lost their mates and felt the false bonds die with them, leaving only emptiness where love should have lived. I watched them gather in the clearing outside the rogue camp, and something in my chest, something that wasn't quite the bond with Zine but felt equally powerful, expanded until I could barely breathe. These were my people, the broken ones, the cursed ones, the ones the mate bond system had chewed up and spit out. Only now we knew the truth. We weren't broken, the system was. 263. Zane appeared beside me, his presence warm through our bond even before he spoke. 3 days since I'd created that golden thread between us, and I still wasn't used to feeling him there, a constant hum of awareness at the back of my mind. More arriving every hour? Word is spreading fast. The king's propaganda is spreading faster. I held up the proclamation one of the new arrivals had brought. Fancy parchment stamped with the royal seal, declaring me a demon sent to destroy wolfkind. He's telling them the old bonds can be restored if I'm killed, and my blood spilled on the altar. Medieval and dramatic. Very Aldrich. Zane's jaw tightened. He's fortified Moonpeak. Every approach is guarded, and he's placed the High Priestess at the altar itself. We'll have to fight through the entire royal army to reach it. Then we fight. The words came easier than they should have. 3 days ago, I'd been ready to throw myself off a cliff. Now I was planning to lead an army against the Alpha King himself. Funny how quickly things changed when you discovered your entire reality was a lie. Kira. Zine caught my arm, turned me to face him. The bond between us pulsed with concern. You know this is likely suicide, right? Even with everyone we've gathered, we're facing the royal army, trained soldiers against farmers and outcasts. I know. I met his amber eyes. But if we don't try, the High Priestess will complete her ritual to restore the false bonds, and everyone who suffered under that system will be enslaved again. Everyone who's dying from the breaking will keep dying, just more slowly. This is our only chance to break the cycle. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Then we make it count. I'll lead the ground assault, draw their forces away from the altar approach. You take a small strike team, Dane, Mira, maybe 5 others, and fight your way to the altar while they're distracted. Dane isn't here yet. He will be. Zane's certainty came through the bond before his words. He confronted Seraphina this morning. One of our scouts reported it. If he survives, he'll come. If he survives. The words hung between us, heavy with implication. Seraphina was a blood mage, an acolyte of the old dark arts. If she'd been faking bonds and poisoning the king's rivals, she wouldn't hesitate to kill Dane to protect her secrets. A commotion at the camp's edge drew our attention. Wolves parted, and Dane stumbled through, supported by 2 of his packmates. He was covered in blood, his left arm hanging useless at his side, but he was alive, and he was alone. I reached him as he collapsed onto a log, breathing hard. The threads around him, the broken remnants of his false bond to Seraphina, were gone entirely now, burned away. But underneath, I could see something else. Faint, golden strands reaching out into the darkness, searching for something. Someone. A true mate, I realized. He has a true mate out there somewhere. She tried to kill me, Dane said without preamble. The moment I confronted her about the enchantment, she tried to rip my throat out. Would have succeeded if my beta hadn't intervened. He looked up at me, his eyes hollow. You were right. The bond was fake. I felt it break completely when she attacked, like chains falling away. Everything I thought I felt for her was just compulsion, magic. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Don't be. He straightened, despite the pain I could see etched in every line of his body. She's dead. My beta killed her when she tried to finish me off. But before she died, she laughed. Said the king would kill me anyway for defecting, that the old system would be restored, and wolves like me, wolves who questioned their bonds, would be eliminated. The old system ends today, Zane said, one way or another. Dane nodded slowly. Then I'm with you. My beta and 20 of my best warriors are with me too. They're done serving a king who's built his throne on lies. Over the next hour, we planned. Zane would lead the main assault from the south, the obvious approach, drawing the royal army's attention. Dane would take his warriors and hit from the east, creating a second front. And I would lead a small team, Mira, 2 of Zane's best rogues, and 3 rejected Omegas who'd proven themselves fighters, through the old service tunnels that ran under Moonpeak. Mira had drawn the tunnel map from memory, her hands steady despite her age. I used them during my time as High Priestess. The king's forces won't expect an approach from below. Unless Seraphina told them before she died, I pointed out. Then we adapt. Mira's smile was sharp. I've been waiting 20 years for a chance to bring down the false bond system. I'm not letting paranoia stop me now. We moved out at sunset, 283 wolves against an army of thousands. The odds were laughable. The cause was just, and I was terrified. Zayan pulled me aside before we separated, his hands framing my face. Stay alive, he said fiercely. No heroic sacrifices, no stupid risks. You get to that altar, you do what you need to do, and you come back to me. Understood? I wanted to promise. The words caught in my throat, because we both knew I couldn't guarantee anything. Instead, I pulled him down and kissed him. The first real kiss we'd shared since the bond formed. It tasted like goodbye and determination and something that might have been love if we'd had more time to figure out what this new bond meant. You too, I managed when we broke apart. Come back to me. Then we were moving, splitting into our assigned groups, and the moment for tenderness was over. The tunnel entrance was hidden in a collapsed groundskeeper's shed 2 miles from Moonpeak proper. We descended into darkness, Mira leading with a light stone that cast eerie shadows on the ancient walls. The tunnels were older than I'd expected, the stonework primitive, and I realized with a chill that these might have been here when the first Aldrich built his altar. We'd been walking for perhaps 20 minutes when we heard it, a sound like wind through caves, except it formed words. Help me. Someone please help me. The voice was female, young, and so broken it made my chest ache. I stopped, holding up a hand to halt the others. Did you hear that? Mira's face had gone pale. Lyra. Goddess above, I'd forgotten about Lyra. Who's Lyra? The Alpha King's daughter. Mira's voice shook. She started showing signs of Omega Prime power when she was 16, could see the bonds, began questioning why some seemed wrong. Aldrich locked her away. I thought he'd killed her. Please, it's so dark. I can't remember the sun. The voice was coming from a side passage, one that didn't appear on Mira's map. I started toward it, but one of the rogues, a scarred beta named Kyle, grabbed my arm. It could be a trap. The king could be using her as bait. Or she could be an Omega Prime who's been locked in darkness for years and needs help. I shook him off. I'm not leaving her. The passage narrowed until we had to walk single file, then opened into a small chamber. What I saw there made rage flood through me so hot and fierce that golden light sparked from my fingertips. A girl, no, a young woman, maybe 19 or 20, was chained to the wall with silver. Silver was poison to wolves, burned us, weakened us. She'd been here long enough that the manacles had scarred her wrists and ankles. The flesh burned black. Her hair hung in matted tangles, and her dress was little more than rags. But her eyes were alert, intelligent, and glowing with the same silver light that had burst from the moon altar when I'd touched it. "You're real," she whispered. "I thought I'd dreamed you. The prophecy said you'd come." I was already at her side examining the chains. "Mira, how do we—" "Step back." Mira's hands began to glow with white light. "This will hurt her, but it's the only way." The magic she used was something I'd never seen. Power that made the chains crack and splinter. Lyra screamed, a sound of agony that echoed through the tunnels, but then the manacles fell away, and I caught her as she collapsed. "How long?" I asked. "How long have you been down here?" 4 years, 3 months, 17 days. Her voice was hoarse from disuse. I counted, at first. Then I forgot. Sometimes I forget everything except the darkness. 4 years. This girl had been locked in silver chains in complete darkness for 4 years because she'd shown signs of the same power I had. Because her father feared what she could become. "Can you walk?" I asked gently. She tried, failed, tried again. My legs don't. I'll carry her." Kyle stepped forward, and something in his expression had softened. "We can't leave her here." We made it back to the main tunnel, but our pace was slower now. Kyle carrying Lyra and the rest of us on high alert. Above us, I could hear the sounds of battle beginning, roars, screams, the clash of metal on metal. Zane and Dane had engaged the royal army. "Be safe," I sent through the bond, not knowing if he could even hear thoughts. You too came back, clear as a bell, accompanied by a wash of fierce affection that made me stumble. The tunnel began to slope upward. According to Mira's map, we were directly beneath the moon altar now. We just had to find the exit, get past whatever guards were stationed at the altar, interrupt whatever ritual the high priestess was performing, and somehow restore true mate bonds while breaking the false ones without killing everyone in the process. Simple. The exit was concealed behind a false wall that Mira opened with a touch. We emerged into chaos. The altar chamber was massive, easily 100 feet across, with the moon altar itself at the center, a great stone table covered in runes that glowed with sickly green light. The high priestess stood before it, arms raised, chanting in a language I didn't recognize. Around her, I could see the bonds, thousands of them, silver and broken, being pulled back together by force. The magic was wrong, corrupted, and I could feel the wolves connected to those bonds dying as she worked. Guards lined the walls, but they were watching the main entrance where the sounds of battle were growing closer. They didn't see us emerge from the tunnel. "Now," I whispered. We moved as one. Kyle set Lyra down gently in the tunnel entrance, and the rest of us burst into the chamber. I made it 3 steps before Prince Theron stepped into my path. He was even more intimidating up close. taller than Zane by a few inches, with his father's cold blue eyes and a sword that hummed with power. "I can't let you pass." "I don't want to fight you," I said, which was true. I could see the threads around him, the potential for bonds reaching out, searching. He wasn't evil. He was just trapped in his father's lies like the rest of us. "I don't want to fight you either." His voice was surprisingly soft. "But my father commands it, and I—" "Theron." The single word came from the tunnel entrance, spoken in a voice cracked from disuse. Theron turned, and his eyes locked on Lyra where she clung to the tunnel's edge, barely able to stand. The world stopped. I saw it happen in real time. The snap of a true mate bond forming, golden and brilliant and utterly undeniable. It wrapped around Theron and Lyra like lightning, like destiny, like everything the mate bonds were supposed to be, but never were under the false system. Theron's sword clattered to the ground. "Lyra, you're alive?" "Brother," she whispered, and I realized with a jolt that they'd known each other. Of course they had. She was the king's daughter. He was the king's son. "He told us you were dead. He told me you'd gone feral, that you'd been mercy killed." Theron was moving toward her, and I saw his hands shaking. He lied. He lied about everything. The bond between them blazed, and I felt its echo in my own bond with Zone. This was what it was supposed to feel like. This was real. "Stop this," Theron said, turning to the High Priestess. "Stop the ritual, now." "I cannot, my prince." "Your father commands." "I command you." Power rolled off Theron, pure alpha dominance that made every wolf in the chamber want to submit. "I am Crown Prince of the Silverpaw Kingdom, and I command you to stop." The High Priestess hesitated, her chanting faltering. In that moment of distraction, Dane burst through the main entrance with his warriors, bloodied but alive. The royal guards, caught between their prince's command and their orders, didn't know whether to fight or stand down. Then the Alpha King himself entered the chamber. He was smaller than I'd expected, unremarkable in appearance except for his eyes. They were the same silver as mine, as Lyra's, as the light that had burst from the altar. And they were ancient, old beyond old, filled with centuries of bitterness and rage. "So," Aldrich said, his voice carrying easily despite its lack of volume, "the three Omega Primes, together at last. How poetic." "Three?" I looked between him and Lyra, confused. "Did you think the power came from nowhere, girl?" Aldrich's smile was cruel. "It's hereditary, passed through bloodlines. I am an Omega Prime, as was my grandmother before me, as is my daughter." He looked at Lyra with something that might have been regret if his eyes weren't so cold. "As are you, apparently, though I thought I'd stamped out that particular branch of the family tree." "You're an Omega Prime," I repeated slowly. "You have the power to create and destroy bonds. So why create the false bond system?" He laughed, and it was the sound of breaking glass. "Because my true mate rejected me. 500 years ago, when I was young and foolish and believed in love. The goddess showed me my perfect match, and she looked at me with disgust and chose another. The pieces fell into place. So you corrupted the entire mate bond system, enslaved thousands of wolves across 5 centuries, all because one woman rejected you? If I couldn't have true love, no one would." Aldrich's eyes glowed silver. "I've used dark magic to extend my life, to maintain the system I created, and I will not let you undo it. High Priestess, complete the ritual." She began chanting again, faster now, and I felt wolves dying as their bonds were forced back together. We had minutes, maybe less. "Theron," I shouted, "get your father away from the altar!" But Theron was still holding Lyra, still caught in the wonder of their new bond. It was Dane who moved, launching himself at the Alpha King with a roar of rage. They collided in a blur of motion too fast to follow, and suddenly I was running for the altar, guards moving to intercept me. Zane burst through a side entrance, his dark wolf form taking down 2 guards before they could raise their weapons. Through our bond, I felt his determination. "Get to the altar. I'll hold them off." Mira was chanting too now, her magic fighting against the high priestesses, trying to disrupt the ritual. But it wasn't enough. The false bonds were reknitting, pulling tighter, and I could feel thousands of wolves across the kingdom screaming in agony as the corrupted magic wrapped around them again. I reached the altar, slammed my hands down on the stone, and pulled. Power exploded outward from me, golden and wild and completely beyond my control. I could see every bond in the kingdom, false ones glowing sickly green, the few true ones blazing gold. And I could feel the anchor point, the place where Aldrich had tied his spell 500 years ago. "I reject you," I said to the altar, to the magic, to the false bonds. "I reject your slavery. I reject your compulsion. I reject everything you represent." The bonds began to unravel, not breaking this time, but dissolving, the corrupted magic burning away like mist in sunlight. And in their place, I could see the true connections between wolves, faint threads of possibility, potential bonds waiting to be chosen, accepted, woven into being. "No!" Aldrich's scream was inhuman. He threw Dane aside and rushed toward me, power radiating from him in dark waves. "You will not undo 500 years of work." He hit me with magic like a hammer, and I went down hard. The world spun, and through blurring vision, I saw him standing over me, saw his hands beginning to glow with the same dark power he'd used to create the false bonds in the first place. Then Theron was there, and Lyra, and the 3 of us, 3 Omega Primes, stood together against the darkness. Our power combined, golden and silver and brilliant, and the false bond system shattered completely, irrevocably, forever. Aldrich screamed as his 500-year enchantment broke. Without the dark magic sustaining him, his extended life began to catch up with him. I watched him age decades in seconds, his face withering, his body collapsing. "Please," he whispered, suddenly old and broken and pathetic. "Please, I just wanted to be loved." Then he was dust, and the chamber fell silent. The high priestess had stopped chanting. Around the kingdom, I felt the false bonds finish dissolving, leaving wolves free for the first time in 500 years. Some would find their true mates, given time. Some wouldn't, but they'd all have choice. Freedom. I collapsed next to the altar, exhausted beyond measure. Zane was there instantly, pulling me into his arms, our bond humming with shared relief and triumph. "Is it over?" I asked. "It's over," he confirmed. But as I looked around the chamber, at the wolves who'd fought and died today, at Theron and Lyra still glowing with their new bond, at Dane standing alone but somehow looking more whole than I'd ever seen him, I knew it wasn't really over. It was just beginning. The real work would come now. Rebuilding a society without the mate bond system that had defined it for 5 centuries. Teaching wolves to choose love instead of accepting compulsion. Creating new bonds for those who wanted them, based on truth instead of magic. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, we'd won. Today, we were free. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The chamber shook as the Alpha King's body crumbled to dust, his 500-year reign ending in the space of a heartbeat. But the trembling didn't stop. It grew worse, cracks spiderwebbing across the ancient stone floor, the walls groaning like a living thing in pain. "The altar's destabilizing!" Mira shouted over the noise. The magic that built this entire structure was tied to Aldrich's spell. Without it, the rest of her words were lost as a section of the ceiling collapsed, stone raining down where we'd been standing seconds before. Zane pulled me aside, his body a shield between me and the falling debris, and I felt his fear pulse through our bond. "We have to get everyone out," I thought at him desperately. "No." His mental voice was firm. "You have to finish this. The bonds are dissolving, but they're not being replaced." "Can't you feel it?" I could. Now that he'd pointed it out, I could feel thousands of wolves across the kingdom, suddenly unmoored. The false bonds were gone, but many of them had lived their entire lives defined by those connections. Without them, they were lost, terrified, some even dying from the shock of suddenly being completely alone in their own minds. "The altar!" The voice came from above, and I looked up to see the moon goddess herself, or at least a manifestation of her, a woman made of silver light, beautiful and terrible. "Child, you must choose. Let the old magic die completely, or remake it into something new, but choose quickly, before the foundation crumbles entirely." "How?" I stared at the cracking altar, at the runes that were fading to black. "I don't know how to—" "You know." The goddess's voice was everywhere and nowhere. "You've always known. Love is the answer, Kira. Love has always been the answer." The floor beneath my feet buckled. Dane was shouting orders, trying to evacuate the chamber, but the exits were blocked by debris. We were trapped, and the entire structure was coming down around us. I stumbled toward the altar, Zane at my side. "I need to try something," I told him, "but I don't know if it'll work." Then we tried together. His hand found mine, and our bond blazed between us. "Whatever you need, I'm here." I placed my palm on the altar for the third time, and this time I didn't pull or demand or rage. This time, I offered. "Love," I thought, pouring everything I felt for Zane through my hand into the stone. "Choice. Freedom. This is what bonds should be." The altar responded instantly, but not with the violent explosion of before. This was gentle, warm, like sunlight after a long darkness. I felt the magic shift, transform, become something clean and pure. "To every wolf in the Silverpaw Kingdom," I said, and somehow I knew my words were being heard everywhere, by everyone. "I offer you a choice. Accept a true bond, formed by love and genuine connection, or live free and unbonded with no shame. No more compulsion, no more false marks, only choice, only truth, only—" The Alpha King rose from his pile of dust. I should have known it wouldn't be that easy. Should have known that someone who'd used dark magic to extend his life for 5 centuries would have contingencies, backup plans, ways to cheat death itself. But he looked wrong now, twisted. His body was a patchwork of shadows and stolen life force, his eyes burning with madness. "If I cannot have control," he snarled, "then no one will have anything." He raised his hands, and dark magic poured from him toward the altar. Not to restore the false bonds, but to destroy the altar entirely, to erase the possibility of any bonds, true or false, forever. Father, no! Theron moved to intercept him, but Aldrich swatted his son aside with a wave of power that sent the prince crashing into the wall. Lyra screamed and ran to Theron, their new bond blazing. And that bond, that beautiful golden connection between them, gave me an idea. "Lyra!" I shouted. "You're an Omega Prime too, help me!" She looked up, understanding dawning in her silver eyes. She placed one hand on Theron, drawing strength from their bond, and extended the other toward me. Our powers connected, a bridge of golden light spanning the chamber. But it wasn't enough. Aldrich's dark magic was centuries old, fueled by bitterness and rage that had festered for lifetimes. We were holding him back, barely, but we couldn't overcome him. The altar continued to crack, to crumble, and I felt the magic I'd been trying to remake beginning to slip away. Then Aldrich turned his attack on Zayn. "You," the king spat, focusing his hatred on my mate. "You gave her something to fight for, something to choose. You made her strong." The dark magic lanced out, a spear of shadow aimed directly at Zayn's heart. I moved without thinking, but I was too far away. I watched in horror as Zayn saw the attack coming, as he braced himself to take it. And I knew, with the terrible certainty of our bond, that this blow would kill him. No. The word echoed through my mind, through the chamber, through the very fabric of magic itself. Time seemed to slow as I flung myself between Zayn and the attack, as the dark magic pierced my chest instead of his. Pain. Incredible, searing pain that stole my breath and my vision and my thoughts. I felt myself falling, felt Zayn catch me, heard him screaming my name. Through our bond, I felt his anguish, his rage, his desperate refusal to let me go. "Kira, no, no, no!" His hands pressed against the wound in my chest, trying to stop the bleeding. But we both knew it was too late. The dark magic was poison, was death, was everything wrong with the old system made manifest. "I'm sorry," I managed, blood on my lips. "But I couldn't let him." "Don't you dare!" Zayn's voice broke. "Don't you dare leave me! We just found each other. We just—" He looked up at the goddess, still watching from above. "Save her. You're the moon goddess. You have the power. Save her." "I cannot interfere directly," the goddess said, and she sounded genuinely sad. "The magic must be chosen, not compelled. Even for this. Then I choose." Zayn turned back to me, and through the haze of pain, I felt our bond shift, change. He was doing something, pushing his life force through the golden thread that connected us, pouring his own vitality into my failing body. I choose her. I choose us. I choose love over everything else. And if that's not enough, then your test was rigged from the start. The wound in my chest began to glow, not with dark magic, but with gold. "Zayn, stop," I tried to say. "You'll kill yourself. Then we die together." His amber eyes met mine, fierce and determined. "I'm not losing you, not today, not ever." The bond between us blazed so bright it lit up the entire chamber. I felt his strength, his stubbornness, his absolute refusal to accept my death. And I felt something else, the goddess's presence closer now, wrapping around us both. "This," she said softly, "this is what I've been waiting for. 500 years of corruption, of wolves accepting bonds they never chose, of a system built on control instead of love. But you two, you chose each other. Freely, completely. You would die for each other. live for each other, defy gods themselves for each other. The pain began to recede. I felt the wound closing, the dark magic burning away in the face of something stronger. Love. Pure, genuine, chosen love. The test was never about breaking the bonds. The goddess continued. It was about understanding that true power lies not in control, but in choice. And you, Kira Ashenvale, have passed. She touched us both and healing magic flooded through me. The wound sealed completely, leaving only a faint golden scar over my heart. Zane gasped as his depleted life force was restored, stronger than before, and Aldrich screamed, "No, this isn't, you can't!" The former Alpha King clawed at the air as his patchwork body began to unravel. "I controlled everything! I built an empire! You built a prison," Theron said quietly, standing now with Lyra at his side. "And you trapped yourself in it more thoroughly than anyone else." The last of Aldrich's stolen life force burned away, and this time there was no resurrection. He aged rapidly, crying out in pain and rage, until finally, mercifully, there was nothing left but dust and bitter memories. The chamber stopped shaking. I stood on trembling legs, Zane supporting me, and placed my hand on the altar one final time. The magic was still there, waiting, ready to be shaped. "To every wolf in the kingdom," I said again, and this time my voice was steady. "I offer you choice. The false bonds are gone forever. In their place, I offer true bonds, connections that form only when both souls choose them, accept them, nurture them. You will know your true mate not by a compulsory mark, but by a warmth in your chest, a recognition in your soul. And if you choose to accept that bond, it will be golden and true, and yours alone." I felt the magic ripple outward, gentle and warm, touching every wolf in the kingdom. "But," I continued, "if you choose to remain unbonded, there is no shame in it. You are complete as you are. You are worthy as you are. Bond or no bond, you are free to choose your own path, your own love, your own life." The responses came in waves. Some wolves, who had truly loved their mates despite the false bonds, felt new golden connections snap into place, stronger, clearer, more beautiful than anything they'd felt before. Others felt threads of possibility reaching toward them, connections to true mates they hadn't known existed. And still others felt simply free, whole, complete in themselves. There was crying across the kingdom, tears of joy, of relief, of grief for what had been lost, and celebration for what was found. But there was no more compulsion, no more slavery disguised as destiny. The altar glowed one final time, then went dark. Not dead, but resting, waiting for those who would come seeking true bonds or celebrating their choice to remain free. "It is done," the moon goddess said, and she sounded pleased. "The test is complete. The old ways are ended. And you, Kira Ashenvale, have become what you were always meant to be, not a breaker of bonds, but a maker of choices." She began to fade, but before she disappeared entirely, she smiled at Zane and me. "Your bond will be blessed across all your lives. You have earned it." Then she was gone, and we were left in the ruined chamber, surrounded by wolves who were just beginning to understand that they were free. 1 year later, I stood at the altar, rebuilt now, cleaner and simpler than before, without the dark runes and oppressive magic. My hand rested on my swollen belly, feeling the flutter of movement within. Our daughter, conceived in love and choice, would be born into a world her parents had helped create. Zane wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. Our bond marks glowed on our wrists, golden bands that we'd chosen together to make permanent and visible, a symbol not of ownership, but of partnership. "Ready?" he asked, his voice warm in my ear. I nodded, looking out over the gathered crowd. The entire kingdom, no, the entire realm of Freehowl, as we'd renamed it, had come for the anniversary celebration. 1 year since the false bonds fell. 1 year since we'd all become free. Dane stood in the front row, his arm around Kessa, a fierce warrior who'd been trapped in a false bond to a cruel alpha. They'd found each other 3 months after the breaking, and their true bond had formed so quickly it had made them both laugh. They were happy now, healing together. Beside them, Theron and Lyra sat on simple thrones, crowned not with gold, but with silver flowers. The new Alpha King and Queen, who ruled not through compulsion, but through wisdom. They'd abolished half the old laws and rewritten the rest to honor choice above all else. Mira stood at the altar itself, wearing the robes of High Priestess, a title she'd taken back gladly. But this was a different priestesshood now, one that celebrated bonds and freedom equally, that counseled wolves on love without demanding they follow any particular path. And scattered throughout the crowd were wolves of all kinds, bonded and unbonded, Alpha and Omega and Beta, former rogues and former royalty, all equal now, all free. "For 1 year," I said, my voice carrying across the gathering, "we have lived in a world remade by choice. Some of you have found your true mates. Some have chosen to bond with partners you love, even if they're not destined mates. Some have remained unbonded and found joy in your independence. All paths are valid. All choices are honored." Zion's hand covered mine on my belly. Today, we celebrate not just the anniversary of the breaking, but the anniversary of our freedom to choose, to love, to live as we were meant to. I took a breath, then tilted my head back and howled, a sound of joy and triumph and hope for the future. Zayn joined me, his voice blending with mine in perfect harmony. And across Freehowl, thousands of wolves howled in response, a symphony of freedom and true love, of choices made and paths chosen, of a kingdom reborn from the ashes of slavery into something beautiful and new. The moon shone brighter than ever before, as if the goddess herself was smiling down at what we'd built. In my womb, our daughter kicked, and I felt through our bond that she would be strong, that she would know only a world of choice, never compulsion. That she would understand love as a gift, not a chain. "I love you," I whispered to Zaun, the words still new enough to make my heart race. "I love you," he whispered back. "Always. By choice. By choice." The most powerful words in any language. The howling continued, joyous and free, and I knew that this moment, this world, this future we were building, was worth every sacrifice, worth every struggle. We had torn down a 500-year-old system of control and replaced it with something simple and profound, the freedom to choose love. And that, in the end, was the most powerful magic of all. The end. Epilogue. 10 years later, Princess Luna Ashenvale Blackthorn would stand at the same altar, her silver eyes glowing with inherited power, and teach a new generation of Omega Primes how to weave bonds of choice and honor freedom above all else. The kingdom of Freehowl would spread its philosophy to neighboring realms, and slowly, across the world, wolves would learn that love chosen is stronger than love compelled. And on the rebuilt moon altar, words were carved in a dozen languages, Here stands the place where chains were broken and choice was born. May all who come here know you are worthy, bonded, or free. You are complete, alone or paired. You are loved by choice and by design. Howl your truth and let no one silence it. The moon shone bright, and the goddess smiled. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like, and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily, and also to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.